Hi, everybody. Okay, so I thought I'd do something a bit different. Instead of demonstrating in the class, I thought I would just demonstrate a recipe in my own kitchen, which you will actually be eating in session. So by the time you watch this, you have tasted this. And the recipe we're doing is the oatmeal breakfast bake. And you can find this has been already sent to you in the first or second week when we send out recipes. So I'm just going to follow the recipe as written. I'm doubling one of the recipes just to make enough for everybody. So I'm going to lower this camera so you'll probably just see my head. And I'm actually in my own kitchen. You'll hear people buzzing around. It's a busy night at my house, but this is how we do it, right? We make it work. And I just want to show you how it really doesn't take a whole lot of time. So you can kind of see, sorry that I'm cutting my head off, but you can kind of see here, I've actually already prepped the bananas. So each, you just get a casserole dish. What I did was I took parchment paper and I scrunched it up so that it fit. You can also do this without putting any spraying and just keeping it right up on the plain glass pan or the, ceramic pan. But I find that sometimes it does stick a little bit. The parchment paper actually makes it super easy, and you can just mix everything inside the pan itself. So I mashed up the bananas. I did 2 bananas. I actually sometimes put 2.5, even 3, like the bananas, you never really go wrong. So you got 2 large bananas, and then we're going to put, these are those oats. I had lots of oats left over from last week. So right into the pan, we're going to mix everything just to save time. So 2 for the 1 dose. And then I've got, this is going to be our double dose. So there's going to be 4 in this one. I've put 4 bananas in this one. 2, 3, and 4. And then in our third pan, I'm making 3 sheets. You're going to see them all tomorrow, or I guess you've already had them. I'm putting another 2 because that's a single dose. Now, I've actually come to the point in this recipe, like for myself, that I can actually just throw them in. You kind of get used to it. You really can't go wrong. If you put a little bit too much oats or a little bit too much, banana, it actually all just turns out okay in the end. Trust me, this is a really forgiving recipe because it doesn't look fancy, but it still works really well. The next thing we're going to use is a plant-based milk, and that will help to provide the moisture. So we're going to do 2 cups. I'm using unsweetened soy milk just to add some protein. So again, in the single dose ones, we're doing 2 cups. It's going to look a little watery. It's okay if it looks a little watery. Trust me, it will all absorb as it cooks in the oven. This one, again, is a double dose. So we're going to do 4, 2, 3. I might need to get another container of milk, but let's see. Oh yeah, I'll have enough. So we double dose that middle one. So 4 in the middle, but this one again has 2. And our 2 smaller ones are going to be the variation of the peanut butter and jam one. And then the one in the middle is going to be the apple pie one, because I don't know about you, but I love apple pie. So again, we're still working on the base recipe before we get into the, the different flavors. So once you've got that, you can see, you can see it's really watery. Like, can you see how watery it still is? That's okay. Don't worry. Everything will absorb, just like your overnight oats did. Plus, we're going to put it in the oven. So again, if you want to alter it, you can put less or more, or if you see that it's a little water, like this does look a little watery, of course, I doubled the dose. So just add a little bit more oats, it's just basically oats, being baked. So that's okay. You can play around just so that it's not super, you don't have puddles of plant-based milk, but it's really still quite moist and wet. And you're mixing up all that mashed banana just to kind of make it spread throughout. You see? Same with this one. Now, I'm going pretty quick here. Why? Because I have to take my kids to practice. So this is something that's not going to take a whole lot of time. But if you do this, you have this whole sheet pan of bake for the rest of the week, which is really great. I feel like we could use some more oats in this one. It just looks a little like not too, just doesn't look like enough oats. So it might end up being closer to 3 cups or 2.5. But basically when you mix it, you don't want it dry, but you want it nice and wet enough there. So there we go. So that's all done there. This one I mixed again. Let me get to this guy. I've ignored this one. Now, In my oven, I told you in the recipe, I had said 375. I actually, because I just finished cooking supper, I had my oven set for 400. I'm actually just going to keep it there. It will just cook a little bit quicker. This double one also will take longer, so that still might take a good 40 minutes. And the way you know it's cooked is it's looking a little brown. Okay, so those are all mixed. You can see there's still some like little puddles of milk, but that's okay. We have more ingredients to add. So into each one, we've got baking powder. I use this non-GMO one just so it's organic and there's no other fillers. And we are going to use 1 teaspoon. So 1 teaspoon, whoops. So 1 teaspoon, and I just sprinkle it throughout in that one. This will help it kind of rise a bit. This is a double dose, so I'm going to do 2. And then this one here has 1. And again, if you're winging it, you don't actually even have to measure it. Just put a little dash in. It's all good. It's just to help it rise. And again, mix it up. And then each base recipe calls for vanilla because vanilla makes things taste great. So we're going to mix this in here. I feel like this pan might be a bit too big, to be honest with you, for the amount. Like this probably would have been good in a square pan. You see how usually I use my small square pan. You see that? So, but that's okay. It'll all still work out. I'll just kind of shove it to one side. Remember, these are not cakes. These are just bakes. So it'll all work out in the end. Okay. What I'm saying is it's a very forgiving recipe. Okay. So now we're going to add some vanilla, and I'm adding 2 teaspoons of vanilla. 1, 2. This one is our double recipe. 1, 2, 3, 4, and another 1. Oops, I really made that overflow. Okay. And again, stir it up, mix it up. I am not adding any added sugar into these because the bananas will make them very sweet. And again, remember, we're trying to retrain your taste buds. So, you know, we want to try to keep your taste buds from getting, you know, still on the sweet bandwagon. So we have to do that gradually. Now, like I said, I'll probably be providing some maple syrup tomorrow if you want to drizzle a little bit on yours. And I think to mitigate the pan here, I am just like, again, I said, you can just keep adding some more oats to fill out the pan. And then to balance it, I'm really just going to add so if you're using the recipe I showed you, you probably want a smaller pan, like a square size pan. I think I missed that in my own memo. If you double the recipe, then that's plenty for a nice, you know, rectangular shaped pan. But I'm going to show you kind of closely what the consistency looks like so you can see. Hopefully you can see. Like it's still quite runny, right? But it all spreads out and everything's got, like the oats have all gotten moist. You want to make sure that, okay? I do not have any fancy cameras, so this is how I roll. All right. Okay, and so we've got the baking powder, we've got the vanilla. Now we're going to add some flax. And here's our flax here. 2 tablespoons in each. Flax can act as an egg. So if you have a recipe, like a baking recipe that calls for eggs, a flax egg is a really great substitute. And the ratio is, now I'm not going to make a flax egg for this recipe because the moisture in the almond milk will help absorb it. But eggs just are a binding agent. They help, they don't add flavor. They just basically keep the cake or the, you know, cookies together. That's what eggs do. So, but they can add some cholesterol and, you know, some unhealthy, you know, protein. So we actually want to choose flaxseed because you're going to learn all about omega-3s this week. And you want to add some omega-3s anywhere you can. So this does double duty. This will add the omega-3s. It also, so that healthy fats, but it also will help to bind it all together. But in a separate recipe, if it calls for 1 egg, you make a flax egg. And again, you can Google this flax egg recipe. It's always the same ratio. It's usually, I'm going to get it wrong now, 1 tablespoon of flaxseed to, I think it's to 2 tablespoons of water. I'm even messing it up. But honestly, if you Google it, Google flax egg recipe, and it's like a 1 to 2 or 1 to 2.5 ratio of ground flaxseed to water. You let it sit and it'll congeal and it'll act like an egg in any baking recipe you have. I'm rambling. I do that sometimes. Okay, so we're going to add 2 flaxseed to that one. This is our double dose, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3. I have done this recipe without flax. It still just bakes up nicely together. So if you forget the flax, you don't have the flax. Again, this is just, it's basically baked oats. It's like the oats you make in a pot, only we bake it so it solidifies a bit. But it doesn't have to bake like a cake would with eggs in it, because the eggs have to be cooked in order not to get food poisoning. But there's nothing in here that you could eat all of this stuff raw and never get sick. So to bake it is just to help change the texture. Because some people don't really like, they want to eat oats, but they don't like the texture of the mushiness of oats. So this is another way to get your oats in your diet, because it's super good for you and super healthy, lots of fiber. And it's a great way to do that. And these are all gluten-free, right? So if you like oats, but you don't like the texture, this might be the solution for you, baking your oats. Okay, so we've done that. And now in the recipe, in the base recipe, it also calls for powdered peanut butter. And this is simply, it's optional if you wanted to add more protein. Now, the peanut butter jelly one already will add some peanut butter powder in it. And why I like peanut butter powder is it's higher in protein, lower in fat. So for people watching calories, it's a really great way to add protein without the fat in terms of healthy protein and from a nut source. So these are legumes, actually. Peanuts are actually a bean. But I get this at the superstore. It's no sugar added. So that's the one you want to get. I'm not selling this brand. If you can find it elsewhere, power to you. So I am going to add it as well. And it's just 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup. So I'm just going to add 1/4 cup to each one. We're going to be adding more to the peanut butter one anyways. In fact, I may as well do that now. Oh yeah, because we already have the peanut. Yeah, so just like about 1/2 cup of the peanut butter powder will work. It's part of your base recipe. You don't actually even have to add any more. We're just going to add the berries on top. Can you tell I would never do well in one of those cooking shows because I talk too much and I ramble and I have flight of ideas. I'm sure my husband is raising his eyebrows at me from the sidelines right now. So when you mix it, again, it will thicken up. You'll start to see that everything's being absorbed by all that plant-based milk. So now, geez Louise, you could even just bake it like this. It would probably be still really nice and yummy. May not be very sweet at all, but if you're one of those people who don't like anything, you like things plain, all you got to do is pop this in the oven. But I like some flavor and I like some more sweetness, but naturally sweet. So like I said, the one in the middle is going to be our apple pie variation. So I basically took a whole lot of apples and I'm just going to dump them in. I think there's like 4 apples in here. So like 1 apple per serving. This might be maybe too much. And you're just going to mix it in. So the apples will stick out. They'll kind of, stick out from the oats as well. They'll be on top of the oats. They won't mix in with the oats. The oats won't cover them. That's all okay. It's just a bake. So it's like a casserole, a breakfast casserole with all healthy stuff. So I kind of smush the apples down. And then I'm going to use this apple pie spice. You can also use just plain cinnamon. And it calls for 2 teaspoons. I'm going to wing it. You'll see what that tastes like tomorrow, or I guess you'll have already had it. I'm estimating it's probably about 1 to 2 teaspoons what I just did. And again, we're throwing them all together. We're mixing them. And then for some more healthy fats, more of those omega-3s, and also because I have a whole lot of walnuts here in my house, we're going to throw in some walnuts. I said a 1/4 cup, but again, just sprinkle them. As you do this once or twice, or 3 times or 4 times, or hopefully a lot more than that, you'll become really familiar and you'll just kind of wing it as you go. You might think of other different fruits that you want to add to your breakfast bake. You can make up any variation. One of my other favorites is doing cherries and frozen cherries and frozen pineapple. It actually works. I know it sounds weird, pineapple in a bake, but it's actually really delicious. So I smush it all down. The recipe in the one that I sent you didn't call for raisins, but yeah, no, I kind of like raisins. So I'm going to add some as well to the bake, just for that little bit of extra sweetness, as well as a bit of iron. And one last mix. So in the end, what your bake will look like is this. I'm going to move it closer. So you can see it's all just patted down. The apples are still sticking out, but that's okay. That's really how it's supposed to look. And it's not soupy, but it is definitely, everything is moist. Okay. So that's how it's going to look. And we're going to pop, we're going to pop that one in my oven. And now we're going to work on my peanut butter berry, which is now really simple because I've already added the peanut butter to my base. So all I really need is some frozen blueberries and some frozen cherries. So I'm not even going to measure it because frankly, I don't ever measure things when I make these bakes because they're so forgiving. You'll know what I mean when you start to make it. So it's got that peanut butter flavor, probably about 1/2 cup of the dry peanut butter. If you do not have the peanut butter, you could use, or if you'd like, you can use like a couple of maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons of like all natural peanut butter as well and mix it in. Or you don't need any of the peanut butter, just put the berries, and a berry bake is also really good. So we're just gonna throw some cherries in. I get these from Costco. They're the dark sweet cherries. These were supposed to be, these are also the same cherries that you use in your overnight oats. If you try the, overnight oat recipe, that's the Black Forest cherry cake. This is what you could use these same cherries. You do not have to thaw them. You can have them thawed, but they do not need to be thawed before they go in the freezer. These guys in here. I guess we'll throw my blueberries in too now. As you can see, I didn't measure it. There's probably maybe 2 cups of berries and cherries in there. So what this almost looks like is your overnight oats, only it's in a sheet pan. The only difference is instead of letting it sit overnight in the fridge, you're going to bake it and let it solidify. So when you bake it and then take it out of the oven, it might still look like a little, it won't look wet, but it'll look a little moist, and that's okay. Just let it sit and cool down completely. I have also eaten it almost right out of the oven, and it's a little bit messier, but it's still good. And again, you don't have to worry about it being cooked right through because frankly, you could eat it like this and you'll never get sick or anything like that. But if you want that kind of cake-like texture, you want to let it bake and then cool down completely. And you'll be, as you'll see tomorrow, you'll be able to cut it like an actual cake. So these are the very bakes that you're going to try tomorrow in class. So hopefully you like them. So as you can see, I'm just patting them down. And again, not soupy, but everything is moist. But you want to pat it down so it hits all the corners. Okay. You could also, if you want it more peanut buttery in terms of flavor, you can simply add more of the peanut butter powder. So I'm going to pop these in the oven too. I can pop all 3 in the oven at once, which is really cool. And there you have it. So again, I don't know how long this video will be, but that's how long it took me to prepare 3. You could prepare 1 in under 15 minutes, especially if you have all your ingredients in the fridge. So you want something, you bake it, say at the beginning of the week, and it will last you at least a few days, depending on how much. I mean, again, you could also eat half of that serving and you'd still be super low in calories, but super high in nutrition. There is a chia jam recipe, which if I have time before, I have to check the time, but if I have time, I will show you a video of how to make it. It's really simple. You just put chia and frozen cherries in a bowl and you stir it around. So I'll see if I can do that before I have to take my kids somewhere. But otherwise, I hope you enjoy this recipe and yeah, have fun and enjoy. Take care.